This is not a rebuttal. This is not a name-calling session. This is just a simple disagreement and a debate. You talked about the experience of the dedicated handheld versus the smartphone and the tablet. But the one thing that I can't agree with that what you said is about the Vita being the superior experience compared to the tablet. Nintendo is a first-rate software hardware developing company. The experience that they can give the consumer is undeniable. With their strong first-party titles, I, without a doubt, can say that you cannot recreate that experience yet on the tablet. However, the PlayStation Vita is the exception to that. They exercise nothing more than red ocean strategy. And as we've already noticed just from this current cycle, Sony's first-party titles are virtually, they're pointless. They don't sell well. And there's not a huge demand for them. But we're going to dig a little deeper into the subject as far as why I think the tablet by far is a much better experience for the consumer and definitely a much better buy for the consumer. So let's get this started. Now, for me, I'm a tech guy, so the first thing that I have to do and the way I analyze most things is I have to break down the product. And essentially, what I've come to the conclusion is the only thing that generally separates an iPad 2 from the PlayStation Vita is the physical buttons used to control the game. From a hardware perspective, you're talking CPU, GPU, they are very similar. They're both based off the same architecture, the ARM Cortex-A9. One's a quad core, one's a dual core. That's arguing right now over the current generation iPad 2. The iPad 3 will have something much more substantial than that. So, it's when I look at things from an X and O perspective. And essentially, they're both hardwares designed to handle whatever you throw at them. The problem is, the Vita represents one model where it says that I am a game console first and everything else is secondary. But the problem with the way that they do it is they're not very good at even creating that first-party true game developer experience for the consumer. They're not good at it. They're not a very good software company to begin with. And the PlayStation 3 this generation, the PSP, and PlayStation Vita now are starting to show that they are not a very good software company. The tablet, on the other hand, especially the iPad 2, is a well-engineered, perfected piece of equipment. The video game industry says that you don't need to use your dedicated handheld for anything else other than gaming. And they're slowly starting to implement the other things, Netflix, Hulu, blah, 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 etc. These have all been standard things that were available to the tablet from day one. You see, the Vita to me represents a computer in that Sony's telling me that you can only type up paper on a computer, whereas the tablet is what everyone and their mama knows is what you can really do with a PC. So, the very notion that the Vita is a superior product just because of the buttons, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And frankly, the sales prove that it's not good enough. So, let's keep going. Feature for feature, experience for the user. Let's look at why the tablet is better. First things first, unlike Sony, who is giving the consumer a hard time for wanting to play their old games they previously purchased, which is ridiculous. On a tablet, anything that you may have purchased on any platform under the iOS App Store format, you can easily download that content at any time you want. And you can play it as often as you want. And guess what? Whether it's an iPad 3, iPad 4, you will always be able to play the old games that you previously purchased. PlayStation Vita doesn't offer that support. Now, they have their digital store, but the problem with Sony is this company has a track record of being dishonest and being unloyal to the consumer. So there's no guarantee that they will even allow you to port over any previously purchased content from their digital store to whatever the next Vita 2, Vita 3, whatever they decide to name their next handheld. There's no guarantee, whereas the iPad 2, you're safe. Everything you buy, you can easily continue to grow. So that's just one area where the tablet is better. Let's move to another area. You made the notion about graphics. Okay. Since the hardware is virtually identical, it's safe to say that depending on the company who's producing the game for the platform, in essence, they can look identical, if not, and you may not like this, but considering that the iPad 2 has a higher resolution anyway, you can actually play a true HD experience on the iPad 2. And again, I'm not even going to mention the iPad 3 that's going to blow the Vita out of the water completely. So to me, your argument about the graphics is one that's going to go out the window. And not only that, let's take it a step further since we're talking about graphics. On my tablet, I have a feature called AirPlay. I can push AirPlay to my HD TV and play it. Seamless transition with no problems. And even as we speak, Apple's in the process of upgrading this transition to where it'll be true 1080p. You can't do that on your Vita. Nope, not at all. So, if I'm a consumer and you're talking about the superior experience, well, guess what? To me, there's nothing like an experience of being able to play my tablet on the go, walk into my house, and continue that gaming session on my HD TV. The Vita will never offer that type of feature. You see, the problem with the Vita, it is a limited ecosystem, unlike my iPad 2, which is friendly with all my devices. Let's go on to another feature then. You say the Vita has a superior battery life. Compared to my tablet, that is laughable. My tablet can easily last longer than the PlayStation Vita. In every possible way except using the physical buttons, the tablet is a better experience. And that small advantage will surely at some point be eliminated as well. They're already starting to develop controllers for the iPad 2. To where if the consumer wanted to, he can set his tablet down and continue the gaming session on his big TV and use a controller. So, to the educated consumer, the one thing that they must and they will consider at any given moment is, what is the best bang per dollar? What will I get the most for? And unfortunately, the PlayStation Vita has not established why it is a superior value compared to the tablet. And with the exception of Nintendo, again, and we're, like I said, we're moving Nintendo completely aside from this right now. Sony doesn't have a leg to stand on versus the smartphone nor tablet market with Apple. Apple, if it were not for Nintendo nor market, Sony's tablet lead would probably be decimated completely and they wouldn't even exist within the span of the next 2 to 3 years. So they should be grateful Nintendo is around to continue the superior handheld experience for the consumer, because Nintendo is the only one who is continuing to do that. The PlayStation Vita does not do that. And you made the cross-game chat as if that was some huge feature to the Vita. That was just this 2012. This has finally become something that has been allowed. PSP never had this feature. So the very notion that you're bragging about this so-called superior experience on handhelds that didn't exist till this year is laughable as well. We're on the second generation of the tablet, and some games actually do offer in-game chat already. Generation 1. So this isn't a bash session, but this is one of those sessions where I thought that if you're going to make the comparison, make it to a worthy opponent, such as Apple and the iPad 2. Because when you compare the Vita to the iPad 2, it's clear without a doubt that the iPad 2 is the better deal. The iPad 2 costs more, and yet it is still the superior experience. It is not limited. You talk about watching Netflix on the Vita. Don't make me laugh. I'd rather watch it on my iPad. At least it's in HD. So, and I could go on, and there's thousands of extra points that I could probably name why the tablet is superior to the Vita. Red Ocean Strategy will never defeat a company that uses Blue Ocean Strategy. You might as well accept it. You might as well get used to it. That's just the way that it is. Again, this is not a bash session. This is just giving my thoughts on the subject. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.